for it, dude.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming. My name is Matthew Tornberg. For those of you who don't know me, I'm going to talk to you guys about fantasy football. So, fantasy football is a game that's played by approximately 300 million Americans every year. So it's widespread across the U.S. But how did it come to be, and how has this affected the NFL is kind of what I looked into, because it wasn't much of a thing back when football took off and whatnot. So in the mid-'60s, there was a man by the name of Bill Winkenbach. I probably botched his last name. He had a bar in Oakland, California, and also was a partial owner of the Raiders. And the bar wasn't doing too well. So he decided to make a game that would get fans to his bar, where it basically pitted their abilities to project fantasy or players' abilities week to week, and give them, teams would win and lose games based on their ability. The league was called the Greater Oakland Professional Pigskin Prognosticators League. It's a mouthful. And that was the first ever fantasy football league. And they ended up growing to about, I want to say, 200 or 300 members by 1970. So it became a big thing. And the beautiful thing about it for Bill Winkenbach was the fact that every time a player or somebody who participated in the league wanted to make a change to their roster, wanted to make a lineup change, wanted to check the score of their fantasy game, they had to come to the bar. And when people go to the bar, they're going to end up buying stuff. So he got a decent amount of money for that. And it basically remained hidden within Oakland throughout most of the rest of the century. And then in 2000, CBS, you can go and click to the next page. This is a picture, actually, of the first ever draft copy of it. But then in 2000, CBS created an online version of fantasy football, which then just switched like that. Everybody wanted to play fantasy football, all football fans everywhere. And that really changed a lot. It allowed people to now play with, somebody in California could be playing with somebody in North Carolina, because they can make changes to their roster online instead of actually having to go into this bar and look at stuff and change stuff. They were able to do it in an instant through the internet. And they were also able to draft. Prior to the online format, you had to draft by everybody getting together and meeting up in a room and just writing names down on a piece of paper. But now you could draft online. You are still able to draft in person, which is like the one on the left there. Lots of businesses will sell stickers, bars and whatnot, where you can draft at their bar, and they'll host a party and you place stickers on the board for who you want to pick. So then in the late 2000s, Hollywood picked up on this and created a TV show called The League, which is it's brought a little bit of attention to fantasy football, and it follows around a league of high school friends who started a league, and they have kept it going in the TV show. So that was kind of interesting. There's also many columns online, on just about every sports page that you will read. You can find fantasy football columns, and there's 2 weekly TV shows that the NFL Network runs on how to, fantasy football strategy and whatnot. So then this is the scoring rules of fantasy football in 1963. It was pretty basic, and not too, just if you score points, you get points. Whereas now in 2016, the rules look more like this. This was a standard league. However, there are also a few other types of scoring leagues where you can draft an individual defensive player instead of defensive team. There's also leagues where you can get points per receptions. But it's clearly evolved a lot throughout the years. And with this with lots of people playing fantasy football, NFL players have started to notice the effect that fantasy football has had on like the league and how they're being viewed. A lot of players don't like fantasy football because of the fact that they'll see like fans in the streets and they'll be like, hey, great game, you threw for 5 touchdowns. But that player will be like, no, we lost, it wasn't a great game. So a lot of people will get mad about that, a lot of players. You can go and flip the slide now. So this is what a standard fantasy football website looks like, the home screen. And you see they've got advertisements here and there. Companies will spend about $2 to $5 billion a year to advertise, that's combined companies, to advertise on these apps and websites. So it's clearly making an effect on how businesses are marketing to people. With that, there's also a lack of diversity in fantasy football players. Only 80% of fantasy football players are males, so they're not really reaching the female population. And 89% of fantasy football players are white. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Not a whole lot of diversity within that. So the fan base of the NFL has been changed dramatically with fantasy football coming into play. In 2009, the NFL picked up on the fact that fans wanted to watch players from all around the National Football League, not just the local games. So they partnered with DirecTV to create the Red Zone channel and Sunday Ticket. Sunday Ticket allows you to watch every game. Red Zone channel is just the scoring plays. But that has drawn a lot of people to want to sit at home and watch football games. So it's been an interesting change where lots of people are interested in football because of fantasy football, but also a lot of people don't want to go sit in the stadiums because of fantasy football, because they want to keep up with their players, not the players of their hometown team. They want to be able to watch every game. And I think a little bit has to do with the price bump as well. Tickets are quite expensive, but no doubt fantasy football has made an impact in that as well. You can flip the page. So a lot of NFL owners have taken notice of this and tried to fill seats in their stadiums. One thing that almost every team does now is they display stats of out-of-town players on video boards to try to keep the fantasy football players also interested. They can see that and be interested in the game. And it's worked to some extent. And also the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2013 tried an idea where they put in the Red Zone channel. They split their Jumbotron in half, with half of the being showing the Red Zone channel and half of it showing highlights from the game. Yeah, kind of an interesting thing. Fans not too interested in the Jags, maybe. But it was an appeal to fantasy players who wanted to watch more than just the hometown players. So that's basically how fantasy football has affected the NFL, and it'll be interesting to see if the NFL is able to change and get fantasy football players into the stadium. Yeah. That's it. Is that it?
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yes, well.
Yes.
Good job, Matt.
That
was awesome.
T-Dog, I have a question.
Yes.
What happened when your team played my team?
Do you need me to throw him out?
I think he needs to be kicked out.
Right. I would get out.
What's the colors of that question?
I can't say anything.
Wireless this year.
And we won't talk about fantasy football names.
I was